How are we doing? I want to sincerely express my apologies for coming in late. I came with my wife and a young man from our church, and I was telling them, to some of us, there's no excuse for lateness. I was telling them, I'm feeling so bad that I'm walking to this meeting late, but please accept my apologies. We were coming from very far. We didn't know how far we were going until we got there. Go to a place where there was a problem with network, then we realized we were very far. I will not tell you where that is. Some of you may be coming from that place, and you may take offense. So just know we are coming from very far. But it's good to be with you. Congratulations to those who graduated. Congratulations, Joe, for this initiative and for your consistency. And I think if there's anything that I've kept on telling you, that consistency pays, and we've seen that consistency. Please keep at it. Let's change the leadership narrative in this country and beyond by equipping and impacting people, so that, who knows, maybe Kenya will be talking of a different story in the next 10 to 15, 20 years. It takes a generation to change a culture. So maybe in the next 10 years we'll be talking about totally different things. So congratulations to you and to your team. I came with my wife. You want to wave? This is my wife, Jennifer. Please appreciate Jennifer. I came with Ivan, one of our young men. Please appreciate Ivan. He's seated there. And I won't keep you for long. One, because I'm the one who walked in late. So I'll make sure that I take very little of your time. That's reason number one. Reason number two, anywhere I speak, I don't finish what I'm saying. I didn't finish last time. I don't promise you I'll finish today. And the technical reason is because I want to be invited again. All right? My name is Oscar, like you've heard, and one of the things that I do is that I'm an associate pastor at Deliverance Church in Umoja, and I can see many faces in this place that are part of that church. Beyond that, I'm passionate about leadership because I believe everything rises or falls because of leadership. If we are able to change how we lead, we can change the story not only of our lives as individuals or families, but also of organizations and also of our nation. I also lead or run something called Sit It Out Leadership, where I train and equip people to be true servant leaders who will, like I said earlier, change the narrative of leadership in this nation. I want to share with you a few things that are part of a bigger resource that I've been developing for some time. I'm hoping for selling Joe. I'm hoping by March I'll have it out. There's a book that I've been writing for the last couple of years. It's taken time to come out, but they say, I do want good food, you cook it for a long time. So hopefully in the month of March, I'm believing God I'll be holding a copy of that book in my hands from the publisher. But this is part of a book that I call Sit It Out. And the aim of that resource is to equip people to not only just be great leaders, but to be great leader makers. Because I think that's what God is calling us to. When He gives you something, you don't hold it, you give it out there. I want you to turn to that person that is seated next to you. And I want you to help me answer this question to them. Who is your most difficult? Who's the most difficult person you've ever encountered in your leadership journey? Who was that very difficult person that posed a challenge to you that you couldn't even lead in your leadership journey? I don't know how long it is. I don't know how short it is. I'll give you 3 seconds. I want you to answer that person that is seated next to you. Who is that person? The most difficult person that you've ever led in your leadership journey. 3 seconds, and then we'll move on. Did your neighbor share something with you? Did they share something with you? Come on, guys. Did your neighbor share something? A name with you? Or a person with you? Did they? All right, look at me so that we redeem our time. Okay, look at me. All right. Okay. I'm seeing some people very passionately in discussion here. But pause it for a minute. Pause the discussion for a minute. Look at me. Did your neighbors share a name with you or a person with you? Did they? All right. I don't even want you to tell me what they shared, but we'll pick the answers as we move on. In 1915, I'm not so sure if it's 1915 or 1912. So it's either 1915, 12th of April, or 1912, 15th of April. So you check, you'll be able to see whether my reference is right. Something interesting happened during that time. A company in Europe that was vast in ship making decided to make the biggest ship ever in the world. And they embarked on this assignment so seriously because they said we'll make a ship that cannot be sunk by anything. We'll make the biggest, most famous ship that no one else has ever gotten into. In fact, they were so sure about that ship that they called it the unsinkable ship. Not only was it the unsinkable ship, they said this ship, even God cannot sink it. So they started selling seats, getting people to reserve their spaces for the maiden journey that was supposed to start the dates that I gave you, from Southampton in the UK to New York across the Atlantic. And the story goes that people bought those tickets, people reserved their seats. By the time they were finishing this ship, all the seats were totally sold out. So come that day, everybody's excited. They're all, smartly dressed with their bags, going to this ship that is called the unsinkable ship, this ship that God can't sink, this ship that is going to embark on its maiden voyage across the Atlantic. But it's a tradition, our ship makers will tell you that when they would do ships, because they didn't know what would happen in the middle of the sea, they would attach some small boats alongside it. So just in case something happened and there was an accident in the sea, you jump into the small boats and you'll have your life saved. Not only would they do the small boats, but they would have some floaters, and quite a number of floaters on the ship, just in case you can't jump on the small ships attached to the ship. You could get a floater if there's an issue, there's an accident, and you'll be able to be safe by going to the shore, even if you didn't know how to swim. But then these guys, because they were so sure this was the unsinkable ship, the ship that God could not sink, did not work to make enough floaters, so to speak. They didn't even have these small boats attached to this big ship because they were so sure about it. And the ship starts to sail. A couple of hours in the journey, the pilot or the captain spots some tip on the surface of the ship, some white tip on the surface of the ship. And he doesn't pay attention. He keeps on sailing. A few minutes, he gets a call from a pilot or a captain of another ship that was in the same sea and says, the route that you're taking, we need you to be so careful because where you're going, there's some icebergs. Be careful. He didn't pay attention. He put down the phone. He got a second call as he continues with his journey. Doesn't pay attention, puts it down. They say he got a third call. Then he got a fourth call and didn't pay attention. He gets a fifth call, and this guy says, the route you're taking is so dangerous, there are icebergs, be careful. He answers back to the guy on the other side of the phone, and he says, we are having fun, mind your own business, and it bangs the phone. A few minutes later, this ship hits a giant iceberg that tears it in between. An accident happens, and the story goes, many people drowned, many people died on that fateful day because this pilot, this captain, never paid attention to what he had seen on the surface of the water or the call he had received because he believed the ship he was piloting was the unsinkable ship and the ship that God cannot sink. And the question begs, what sank the ship? Was it the tip, the white tips that the man could see, or was there something else behind or beneath the surface of the water? It is said when you are sailing or when you're on the sea and you see the tip of the iceberg, what you see is just 10%. But below the surface of the water, there's a 90% mass iceberg that you can't see with your visible eyes. The pilot saw the 10%, ignored the 10%, he did not realize that below the surface was a 90% mass that would bring the ship down. You see, sometimes the things that bring us down as individuals and as leaders are not things that you can see, are really things that you can't see. You see, 10% in leadership language of the iceberg on top of the sea represents what is visible. It represents your gifting. It represents your talent. It represents your charisma. It represents how good you are, either as a speaker, as an orator. It is what people can see. But then there's a 90% in your leadership that people seated next to you can't see it. Unfortunately, more often than not, what brings leaders down is not the 10%, it is the 90% under the surface of the water. Unfortunately, as leaders, sometimes we spend most of the time taking care of the 10% and do not take care of the 90%. Yet the 90% is what will either dictate whether you will progress as a leader and be successful or whether you will not. The story of the iceberg and the story of the ship, which in history is called the Titanic, teaches us that if you can't take care of the 90% that really makes who you are, then you won't be able to take care of the people out there. Let me put it this way. And that's the theme of what I want to talk to you today in a few minutes. If you cannot lead yourself, you cannot lead others. As you graduate today, I want to bring you back to where the journey of leadership starts. Leadership doesn't start out there. Leadership starts in here. That's why I asked you a question. Who's the most difficult person you've ever led? I don't know your answers. Maybe some of you had names of people in your office, people in your church, in the family, people out there. But I want you to know that the most difficult person you'll ever lead is yourself. That's the most difficult person you'll ever lead. If you can conquer yourself, you'll be the most successful leader this universe has ever seen. If you can lead yourself, you can't lead others. In leadership and in leading yourself, the 90% represents what we call character or your integrity. So you've got to understand that it's supposed to be character before competency. Leading yourself is putting character ahead before your competency. As much as competency is important, as much as skills and gifts and talents are important, but what brings us down is not our skills and our competencies, but it is our character. And that's why it has to be character before competence. You see, learning to lead yourself well is one of the most important things that you and I can never do as a leader. Learning to lead yourself well is so important that it means you hold yourself to the highest standard of accountability that others do. That I will hold myself to the highest standards of accountability. That as you get that certificate, as we listen to your leadership statement, as you get into that space and you start leading, as you start interacting with people, would you hold yourself to the highest level of accountability? Would you learn to lead yourself first before you attempt to lead people out there? You see, human nature is interesting because we're endowed by the ability to size up everybody else apart from ourselves. That sometimes you see the problem out there, but you don't see it inside us. It's very easy to say so-and-so is sabotaging me, so-and-so is a stumbling block. But we never take time and do a self-introspection and ask ourselves, what's our contribution? Could we do better? Are we leading ourselves well? A writer called Dr. John Maxwell, in his book, if you're a book reader, please read this book. He's written a book called Winning with People, begins with the mirror principle. Winning with people. And he says, winning with people, it begins with the mirror principle. In other words, you hold the mirror to yourself every morning and you look, check yourself. That the first person you must examine when you hold the mirror is not our neighbor. It is not your spouse when you're married. It's not your child if you have children. Not the person you stay with if you're staying with somebody. The person you must examine when you do or hold the mirror to yourself is yourself. That if you and I as leaders don't learn to look at ourselves realistically, then we can never understand where our personal difficulties are coming from. And all of us have personal difficulties. All of us have deficiencies. All of us have blind spots that we need to work on. And the only way we can do that is when we start to self-introspect. And that's why I told you, the toughest person you will ever lead is yourself. And the journey to effective leadership doesn't start out there. Doesn't start with a title. It starts with us leading ourselves. Self-leadership is so, so important. You learn to lead yourself before you learn to lead others. Why? Because, and I've written this, please don't forget this statement, that leadership is about our person before it is about our practice. Leadership is about our person before it is about our practice. It is not so much what you do, it is who you are. It is who you are. Unfortunately, we are living at a time when there are so many people in leadership positions who've never learned how to lead themselves first, but they want to lead others out here. Why is leading yourself so important? Give you a scripture, say 3 things, is it 3 or 4 things, then I'll get out of the way. 3 things, then I'll get out of the way. Leading yourself is so important because the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 9, 25 to 27, he writes this. This is what he says in 1 Corinthians 9, 25 to 27. He says, everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. Therefore, and not the word I do not run like a man running aimlessly. I, again that personal pronoun, I do not fight like a man beating the air. No, I beat my body and make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. You know, you could put that word, after I have led others, I myself will not be disqualified. I think he speaks about that word I, about 3, 4, or 5 times. In other words, Paul is saying, I learn how to lead myself first. I learn how to deal with myself first. If I'm to improve my leadership, I've got to work on me. If I've got to be a better leader, I've got to work on me. It doesn't say God will discipline my body. It doesn't say God will beat my body. It says I do it. In self-leadership, I do it. I examine myself every other day. I put myself on the weighing scale. And I audit myself. And I ask myself, where am I having shortcomings? Where do I need to improve? I don't want to have to preach to others, then I'm disqualified. I don't want to lead others, then I'm disqualified. That's why it has to start with me. Leadership starts with you. There are 3 things that you and I can do to improve our self-leadership. And these 3 that I want to share with you, I believe, are prerequisite for leading others. That unless you get hold of these 3, you will not lead other people. When I told you we have people out there who are leading others and have never learned how to lead themselves. Unfortunately, the end result is pain, heartache, they hurt others, they get disappointed, they get frustrated. These three things are so key. I'll give you these three things, give you one story, and then, like I said, in a few minutes I'll be out of the way. Where does this start? It starts with self-awareness. Effective self-leadership starts with self-awareness. And self-awareness is really understanding your own internal world. Making time, putting in an effort, being intentional in understanding your own internal world. Self-awareness is having a realistic self-image based on your gifts and personality. Having a realistic self-image based on your gifts and personality. Because if you're ignorant of yourself, then you can't lead others. If you're ignorant of yourself, you can't lead others. I mean, self-awareness, you get to a point where you know your strengths and you know your gaps and you're working to bridge them. Because when you're self-aware, if you're a leader who is self-aware, you'll be able to manage relationships well. You'll be able to manage conflicts. You'll be able to motivate others. And you'll be able to build teamwork. When you're self-aware, you will know, so-and-so is better in this than I am. You will not be insecure. You'll be a secure person. You will know in this world, there will always be people who are better than you. There will always be people who are at the same level as you are. And there will always be people who are below you. That's what happens in this world. So you will not be envious or insecure about your teammate. That young person that you're leading who looks more gifted in a certain area than you are. Instead, you say, I want to maximize on my strengths. I want to help strengthen my weaknesses, but I will celebrate people who are better in areas that I am not. If we can deal with that, we'll not be insecure leaders. One of the dangers that you can do to the people that you're leading is to be an insecure person. They will never thrive. They will never go anywhere. So self-awareness is critical. So number one, self-awareness. Once you're self-aware, the second one is equally important, is what we call self-alignment. And in self-alignment, what you do is that you develop life principles that you live by that enable you to take a moral stand that is consistent with your convictions. You align yourself, or you create what I call a value system based on God's word as a leader. And that value system helps you or informs your decision making. Because as a leader, you'll have to make decisions. You'll have to make, in fact, the work of a leader is to make decisions every day. Make choices every day. You want to make choices and decisions that are based on a proper value system, and a value system based on God's word. What a value system does for you, it helps you to say no when you're supposed to say no, and yes when you're supposed to say yes. I mean, there are things as spiritual people, you don't even have to say, let me go pray about it. If it does not align with your value system, your answer is a straight no. If it aligns with your value system, then your answer is a straight yes. And that's where self-alignment comes. You see, organizations, if we talked to Joe here, this organization has got values. The company you work for has got values. The church you lead has got values. How come you and I have never come up with personal values? That we can write somewhere and say, these are our 5 values. These are my 5 values that I hold dear. That help me or inform my decision making. I want to challenge you. If you've never done it, please go do that. Take a piece of paper. Come up with 5 values that inform how you lead and the decisions you make. Many years back, I told you I'm a pastor in ECU Monza, and we are not so far from Outer Ring Road. In fact, we have one of our campuses that is very close to Outer Ring Road. When Outer Ring Road was being dualed, these Chinese were looking for grounds. And the campus where we are, where my office is on a very big piece of land, 4.5 acres. And most of it is not, most of it is vacant, nothing on it. So one day our secretary tells me, there's a guy who came to look for you, and he wants to negotiate with you about the empty space of land that's next to the road. And I ask, who's this? And she says, it is a Chinese contractor. I said, okay, don't give him my number, ask him to come on a certain day. At this time, I'll be in the office. And true to his word, on that day, this guy tells me, your guest is here. And I said, bring him in. And this Chinese guy comes, walks into my office, introduces himself in a language I don't know whether it was English or some other language. I could only pick words, bits and bits. And introduces himself and says, I'm a director of one of the companies that is working on this road. He tells me there are 5 companies that are doing different things, all from China. And ours is one, and we're looking for a place for holding, to put our materials, to construct some houses for Chinese workers that they can stay in. And we are interested in this frontage of yours. Give it to us for a couple of years, and then after those years we'll be able to live. So I asked him, are you going to pay for it? He says, no, we don't pay for it. What we do, we put our stuff, we build the houses, and when we leave, we leave all the houses to you. I said, that's interesting. And I said, so how long do you want it? He says, we want it for 5 years. I said, 5 years? So I'm like, so if you want to build something midstream, what happens? He says, you can't, because you'll have signed a contract. Then I asked him, so we'll sign a contract and not going to pay for it. He says, no, we're not going to pay for it. So I look at him and I'm like, okay, let me talk to my superiors. I'll get back to you. And as I'm telling him that, I knew the answer that I was going to give. I didn't even need to talk to anyone. So he goes, I tell him, come in 2 days. He comes in 2 days, I didn't talk to anyone. In fact, guys in church, our leadership in church, came to know this story way after. So he comes, and I tell him, by the way, we'll not be able to give you this land, because I think we'll be wanting to use it in those 5 years. So sorry, we can't give it to you. Looks at me, then he goes. He came back the next day. This time, he was carrying a briefcase. Comes to the office, sits down, opens the briefcase, removes some pieces of paper, shows them to me, and he tells me, if you can get the boss to sign, your boss to sign this is yours. Removes a brown envelope. Not a small, not this one. This is too small. You know, the other big one, is a what? A 3. He removes it, and he says, this will be yours. And he says, this is money in Kenya shillings, tells me the amount, and he says, if they sign, this is yours. Guys, I was broke to the bone. That's how bad the devil is. I didn't have money. And this guy comes holding this big envelope, and he says, this is yours, just get him to sign. I looked at him and I laughed. And then I told him, I'm so sorry. We can't give it to you, even with that money. And the guy looks at me and he's like, what species of a Kenyan are you? Because I think I've gotten used to many Kenyans, when once you produce something like that, they all fall for it. Then he walks out. You see, I didn't need to tell you, let me go pray about it. You spiritual Pentecostal leaders who are here, there are things you don't need to pray about. All you need to do is to have a value system. That these are my values. That the idea may look so good, but because they don't align with my values, I'm not taking it. So number 1, self-awareness. Number 2, self-alignment. And then lastly, self-discipline. You're self-aware, you're self-aligned, you've come up with principles that help you to make or to take a moral stand, make decisions, values that are based on God's word, and then self-discipline. You know everything is about self. This is not about God. There are things God will do for you, there are things God will not do for you. He expects you to do for yourself. And self-discipline means you have developed the ability to do what is right, even if you don't feel like it. that I don't feel like it. I'm broke to the bone, but because of self-discipline, I'm not taking that cash. I'm not taking that money. You see, it is self-discipline that will support your value system. It doesn't matter how many values you come up with. If you don't have discipline, you can't hold on to them. Self-discipline will support your value system. So you've got to discipline yourself. And that's why Paul says, I beat myself. I put my body under subjection. I do it to myself. I deny myself some things. I refuse to speak out of turn. That as a leader, I don't have to comment about everything on social media. As a leader, I'll be the last one to speak, not the first one to give my opinion. I will hold myself. That I'll be seated in a meeting and everybody's talking. And intentionally, I can't speak. Because when you speak, if you speak out of turn, you'll have messed up the meeting and you'll have given them a direction because you're the leader of the team. So I'll discipline myself. That I will sit in the team and allow everybody to talk. And talk and talk and talk and talk. Deny myself some things. Self-discipline will help you as a leader. There was a leader called Frederick the Great, like a small colony called Prussia within Germany many years back. And Frederick was walking on the outskirts of Berlin, taking a walk. He's the leader, he's the king, he's the royalty of the nation. And then as he's walking with his entourage, he spots an old man, very old man, walking. And the man was walking with a walking stick in the opposite direction. And Frederick gets excited because he's like, that's one of my subjects. Let me go talk to one of the people that I lead and I rule over. I'm the king in this place. Disembarks from his chariot, heads straight with his orderlies to this man. And excited, he looks at him and says, hey, sir, who are you? And the man looks at him. This man was his subject, looks at the king, and in a husky voice retorts, I am a king. And Frederick is confused. You are a king. I thought I am the king. And the man replies again, yes, I am a king. And Frederick laughs again and looks at him, a king? Sarcastically says, a king? And then asks him, over what kingdom do you reign? And the man proudly looks at Frederick and says, I rule over myself. I rule over myself. That's how he answered him in a very proud way. In other words, I command, I self-lead. It is said, when we are foolish, we want to conquer the world. When we are wise, we want to conquer ourselves. When we are foolish, we want to conquer the world. When we are wise, we want to conquer ourselves. Leadership begins with self. It is character before competency. God bless you.
Appreciate them again. Those are good way to summarize our discussion. Do you need to add anything else? A really perfect summary of all that we have discussed today. And more and more. Really want to appreciate that.